The next speaker we have today, if anybody's ever had a painting in their room and you look at it and you just, you might know the name and you think, why did they paint that? What's the story behind that painting? So we're going to get a bit of a lesson from Jean Paul Lavand, and he will share the stories and teachings behind his paintings. So please welcome Jean Paul.
Hello, Lavand got English because McQuaid told them. I would like to thank everybody for being here today. Jay Leto did a story about my artwork. Tanchantkat was my brother, Marcel Lavand, and he passed away at an early age. So basically, I dedicated my life to the memory of my brother as being an artist. I guess you can say I forced myself to draw, only because I wanted to keep my brother's memory alive. So anyways, this is my story here. I was born September 5th, 1962. My first home I remember was a log cabin off Jones Road, pretty close to Wilson's Camp. My dad was a tree farmer. He worked with Delbert Stone, who had a truck to haul logs while my dad cut cords of wood. Our log cabin had no floor, just balsam branches. We had a stove, but it was always cold by morning. My dad was always chopping wood to keep us warm. I could remember only one window, one door, one way in and one way out. It was a small cabin for our family. My mom, Bessie Bunting, my dad, also Jean Paul Lavand, my older brother Marcel, myself, and my younger sister Yvonne, which was her name was Manchiankut, which was a little passing cloud. So anyways, Marcel inspired me to be an artist. He was going to school. He had to walk towards the road to get picked up, but I don't know where he went to school. Marcel probably got crayons from school and he drew on whatever he could find. Paper from school was a treat for him. Living in the bush, we had no neighbors. Our community was snow most of the time, and it was sunny. My mom would take us out and we'd set up snares. Life that seemed simple, seemed easy. We didn't know anything about English until we moved to North Bay. It was loud and scary in North Bay. My dad was training there with the Ministry of Natural Resources to be a firefighter. In 1967, 1968, we moved from Saskatoon to Winnipeg. After North Bay, we moved to Saskatoon because my dad wanted to go to college. It was amazing. Every time we had moved, it seemed like the community we got to was larger. I'm not sure what he studied in college, but it had to do with the M&R work. I can still see a picture of his college class to applied sciences students. My brother and I would go to this community center where we'd have activities for us kids while Dad was in school. My mom was always looking after Yvonne. That's when my brother started experimenting with oils and acrylics, using only his hands, like he never used paintbrushes or pencils or anything like that. There would be a bunch of different colors of on the paper, like splashes. He kept on going with just his fingers mixing colors, and all of a sudden you would see it was a deer. It was like a photograph. He never used pictures though. He basically, in his mind, from what he remembered from Jones Road. We had moved to Winnipeg, and there was Dr. Spears found a tumor in Marcel's brain, and that's what took his life. It was August 1st, 1968. My sister and I were having French fries with him outside the Children's Hospital, Winnipeg, which later amalgamated with Winnipeg General Hospital to form the Health Sciences Center. My mom said, "You'd better go say goodbye to Marcel." We said our goodbyes. My mom was crying, and we knew he was going to be gone. He was only 8 years old, and I was turning 6 in September. By the time we moved back to Kenora, I had started drawing. I wanted to be like Marcel, to be creative. I tried to see what Marcel saw. I didn't have the talent, but I kept on drawing and studying pictures. I studied whatever I saw in my surroundings. I studied anything I could get my hands on. At the clinic, I looked through books, and I'd ask the nurse if I could have pictures every now and again. They'd let me use an old issue. I could find nice pictures there to draw. But I got bored looking at pictures and books. I started drawing things that I saw, like people's faces. I found interesting. That were basically where I started. I was about 6 or 7 at the time. 1968, 1971. We lived in Rat Portage. I don't remember when they put the road into Rat Portage. There were a lot of trails we walked. Most of our grocery shopping was done at Safeway. We got there by boat. We had a 10-horse and 18-horse Evinrude. On the return trip, my sister and I would hide under the covers of the boat with French loaf. By the time we got home, the French loaf would be eaten out. And we just left the shell of the French bread. I know that my grandparents, my dad's parents, when we moved back to Red Portage, I don't really know where from. From, but my dad and I used to go to Morrison, 20 miles north of Rainy River. I think that's where my dad's parents came from. There were the Bluebirds, the Big Georges, and Seymours. I know my mom's from Frenchman's Head, Sulacot, Hudson area. She's related to the Laxwools, Buntings, and Grays. My grandparents came by boat to visit us when we go out on the lake to different places like Strawberry Island, French Narrows, Yellow Girl, and Witch Bay. We went fishing and rice picking. My grandparents taught us how to pick rice in a canoe with 2 sticks, and like when we'd process the rice, we'd kind of like dig a hole, put a canvas, and then we'd dance on the rice. We processed and separated in the traditional way. On those islands, we have a smudge. It was planned. It happened. Maybe we asked to hear a story, to start a fire, and we prepared to sit down and do a little smudging. Then they'd say a prayer, and my grandpa would start telling stories. It was important. We didn't break the circle until the prayers, stories, and everything was done. I went to St. Mary's Residential School for kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2. I used to bury my head in my desk to hide what I was drawing. That's why I got in trouble. We weren't allowed to do anything we normally did. We couldn't speak our language. My mother said I was fluent in Ojibwe when I was in St. Mary's. Now I'm not able to speak my language. The nuns always were mad at me and hit me in the head or hands with a yardstick. All I remembered was the punishment I got from the nuns and the Outlet Fathers. There was one room we were always put in. It was kind of like a punishment. Speaking about in the residential school, I considered myself one of the lucky ones that didn't get really physically or emotionally abused. And I'm grateful for that. Okay, 1972, 1979. After the closure of St. Mary's School in 1972, I went to Mount Carmel School from grade 3 to 6, then to Thomas Aquinas, grade 7, 8, and Lakewood Secondaries, and then Beaver Bay. Art classes were an option at Mount Carmel. We could do music or crafts, and it was nice that we were given the choice of what we wanted to do. At that age, we were what we want to be when we grew up. I wanted to be a doctor or an architect. My idea of architecture was slide rules and pens, but they were showing me computers, and I didn't take to computers. However, when I was in school, I was studying vanishing points and perspectives, and that's what I wanted to do. I liked the slide rule where I started drawing horizontal points, vanishing points, and could design a house or a town or a street. That's what got me interested in architecture. So I did follow that, and now the way things are, like with the phones and all that, I really dislike new tech. So I'm old school, I guess you could say that. I'd prefer. Okay, I was doing a bit of that when I was in Thomas Aquinas, but when Macintosh computers were coming in, we were asked if we wanted to take computers. I said no. But now, I wish I could go back in time and take it because I have a hard time with my phone. My dad was a fishing guide for many years. He became friends with the Zimmers from Cincinnati, Ohio. We drove down to visit them, and they took us to Disney World in Orlando back in 1976. I saw artists working and was very impressed with how quickly they drew portraits. Ooh, where am I here? Maybe I should do this. Oh, I don't even have that picture. Okay, well, oh, yeah, I know, but I don't have the pictures that I want. Okay. Judge Harold Giles from Winnipeg was a guest speaker at Thomas Aquinas. Danny Groshak and I were asked to do some drawings and paintings for him and Pauline McGibbon. I drew an old log cabin in pen and ink. It kind of reminded me of Jones Road. They presented Judge Harold Giles with that picture and said to me, if you're ever in Winnipeg, come and see me at 373 Broadway. So I went and seen him, and I seen the 4 pictures that I did for him. My dad tried to pass down what he taught. We went hunting, and I was about 14, 16 years old when he was trying to teach me these things. I remember my first kill, a beaver. I hated that feeling of taking a life. After that, I told my dad that I was going to shoot through a lens. My dad also tried to teach me to fish and guide, but I didn't have the patience to sit in the boat. My sisters enjoy fishing more than I do. I enjoy the cooking part. Helping with shore lunches, eating, that's what I liked. I continued to draw with pen and ink and a little bit of acrylic, but all the work that was destroyed in our house fire. We had 2 house fires back in 1974 in February was our first fire. My mom actually ended up saving most of our photographs of my brother's artwork. And then the second fire that we had was in 1979. And that was 1979. We had no place to live in Kenora. Our only relatives that we had were in Winnipeg, so we packed up and moved to Winnipeg. I lived with my dad's sister for a couple of months. We ended up at Lord Selkirk Developments. That's where we stayed for the next 23 years. Went to St. John's Island, but that was a disaster because the Filipino community were kind of like, I guess you could say, well, we were bullied by them anyway, so never finished school. When I went to go see Judge Harold Giles and asked me, can you draw links? And then I said, I've never done one, but if you can draw links, a grizzly, a wolf, or a raccoon, those pictures that I want. I went home and did went back to see him about a week later. I asked $120 for all 4 of the originals. I thought that was a gold mine. He said, that's very, very cheap. But to me, I thought it was a lot of money because I'd never sold anything before. As far as I knew, he held on to them until the day he passed, right after I started selling my artwork. 1984, 1985, all of a sudden there were 4 people that were starting to buy my artwork. They were friends of Harold Giles, and they asked me if I wanted to print my artwork that they had bought. They said, if you want to print them, we'll pay for the printing, and we'll give you the prints. All they wanted to do was own the originals. So I thought, sure, let's do that. We did a gentleman's handshake. They paid for the printing, and they buy the originals. That's basically how I started my prints. The only one I have left is 1987 Great Horned Owl. Okay, let's see, how do I do this again? Okay. Oh, no, that's not the one, because that one's 1983. I don't think it's on here either. No, it's not on here. Okay. Well, anyways, that 1987 Great Horned Owl, it's similar to this one, but it's not the one. Anyways, I have been trying to discontinue that print, or I mean the art cards now, but people keep asking for it, so I'm still selling it. I guess you can say that's probably one of my best pieces that I've ever done in my whole life. I also took my artwork to Fleet Gallery, Warehouse Artworks, and the Wassa Gallery in Winnipeg. I got to know Norval Morso, Daphne Ojig, and, Jackson Beardy. I just seen him once, and then he just passed. The next thing I know, I was invited to show my artwork at the Centennial Concert Hall, which was my very first show, and that was February 1980, I believe. The next thing I know, I was invited to show my artwork at Tradition and Change at the concert hall, and then there was another one at the convention center when the Queen's visit was there. It was a group of Canada's best Native artists like Norval Morso, Goyce Kakagamak, Derek Harper, Leo Nelson, also known as Sweet Pea. I was influenced by Benjamin Chi and Clemens Westcoop. So I tried to develop my own style, but basically came up with the herons, the loons, geese. All I know is when I see these lines, I see stories, and I could draw them through those lines. I don't know why that is. John Clark was an editor of United Grain Growers. Some of the artwork at Tradition and Change show and asked me to deliver them the following Monday. He introduced me to a graphic designer, Gail Granger. She trained me to be a paste-up artist, and I worked there for 2 years. During that time, I was selling my art through the newspaper. John Clark paid me 60% of whatever I sold to the United Grain Growers newspaper. Northwest Travelers Association bought art to present as awards to hotel chains across Canada. One of every province and territory. These pieces are displayed in hotels in Winnipeg, Edmonton, Montreal. I was given the grant to train to be a counselor with the Native Alcohol Council of Manitoba. This organization had a lot of smudgings in the mornings. It was like a prayer group. We formed a circle. Once the circle, you couldn't break it. You had to stay there until everything was finished, which was just like when I was a boy and my family out in the lake. I also took life skills programs at the Friendship Center in Winnipeg. That's where I picked up a little bit of the 4 directions: caring, sharing, faith, honesty. We did job placements as well. I felt the life skills would help me with my artwork. I wanted to see if I could incorporate the teachings of the 4 directions. My grandfather talked about values in the late 1960s. Every now and then, he'd be telling stories around a campfire. Some of the stories were make-believe, but were life stories and were supported to learn from them. The stories woke me up, and I started having dreams about them, and I had to put them down on paper right away. I tried to interpret what they meant, otherwise they would be lost. When I have dreams, I sometimes see something happening in those dreams. For example, where are you now? Oh. Okay, now this one over here. Okay, where's the portrait part? Okay, now over here, I didn't see these as blue jays. I just seen them as birds flying. But in my dreams, I seen them. They had hands, and as they were flying, what happened was on one side they ended up fusing together. So that right there, they're fused together. And then on the opposite side, on this side over here, every time they came to, they were real close. It almost looked like they were about to join, but they would always pull away. So in my dreams, that had to mean something. So what I was thinking is if they actually joined there, they would be smothering each other. So with that being, with them always separating there, they would give each other space to live their own lives. Then through faith, honesty, kindness, caring, and sharing, they can have an everlasting love. So that's why I call that one everlasting love. Now there's okay, next one. This one over here, you can't even see, but there's a half a circle inside here. That actually represents the balance between both people. And then the 3 colors that are there, the blue, the powder blue, and the yellow, represents body, mind, and spirit. And then these little squiggly lines represent energy. And then again, faith, honesty, kindness, caring, and sharing. Okay, now, wrong way. Okay, now this one over here, this turtle actually represents a grandparent, or a grandparent. And then over here, faith, honesty, kindness, caring, and sharing, energy. And then there's teachings inside this. And this grandparent over here, the reason why he's kind of leaving that, going in this direction, is he's actually searching to pass down these values. Let's see. Now this one over here, this is basically would represent, oops, wrong one there. This actually would just represent a person, and then all these is basically the same thing: faith, honesty, kindness, caring, sharing, energy. This one over here, most times when I used to do these paintings, the heron facing this way would represent the male, where the female would be facing right, would represent the female. And this is what I use as one of my cell technique, is the female is facing right, the women are always right. So, yeah. That was always my mom's favorite line whenever I said that. Okay, let's see. Where that was, especially when the birds were flying, it was actually supposed to be a meeting of two people that were falling in love, but they never did anything about it. Okay, where am I now? So I think I was thinking it had to mean something. Oh, no, I already explained that part. I also started teaching in schools in Winnipeg, Kenora, and Dryden. I took artwork with me to show the students of how to draw. I'll give a little history about myself and the lesson. My favorite thing my favorite thing to tell the kids was, I'll draw your uncle. I just wish I had like a little chalkboard or something like that. But anyways, what I used to do was I would pick out a student just randomly out of the crowd, and then I would say, here, let me put my hand on your on your head, and then I'll come up with a picture in my mind of your uncle. So anyways, like what I used to do is I used to spell the word uncle, and then just put a little head over the word uncle. But anyways, like the uncle, the U would be the nose, the N would be sort of like a little mustache, the C would be the chin, the L would be the neckline, and then the E would be the ear. And then I would just draw the rest of the head like an eye and a couple of strands of hair. And the kids would just laugh and say, oh, yeah, that is your uncle. I'll keep going to school as long as there are kids who are interested. I try to give the tools to the four directions of body, mind, and spirit. I show these tools in my paintings, and when they can make their own designs. I met Grant Greenfeather at art shows. He was sketching at the Friendship Center. The Fellowship Center here in Kenora. I also seen him at Polo Park in Winnipeg, Kenora Shoppers Malls, and other malls where he was selling. It was about 20 years ago, Greenfeather and I wanted to do a print together. He would do the scenery while I was going to do the animals. I really wanted to do one or two mallards coming out of the water, but he was really sick, and then he passed away in Thunder Bay, so we never got to do that project. I moved back to Kenora in 2001. I worked at No Frills Grocery as a butcher until I got my feet back on the ground. I've always had my artwork in the gallery, Kenora, starting at Second Street Gallery until the 1970s, which was Evelyn Wilson and Fred. I now have Lavand art at Elizabeth Campbell Books. I did a lot of volunteering with Tango Tree with Jay Larmar, and I would really like to thank her because, like, just volunteering there for, I believe, was like 6 years. She sort of like gave me the strength, the honor of being one of Kenora's artists. Anyways, like, I started selling at the farmer's market approximately 15 years ago. I had a large collection, mostly Aboriginal art. I also have one of Holly Ann Friesen's. 3 years ago, Heathbridge accounting firm in Toronto contacted me to do Christmas cards. I continue to paint and draw. Marcel has stayed in my life. Stayed in my mind all my life. I wanted my brothers to live on, so that's why I kept drawing. Okay, well, that's basically everything that I've done. Okay, now, this picture over here, it's called Time to Let Go. The only reason why I kind of like this is a mother bear saying goodbye to her child, and this is more of a graduation type of a picture.